about 30 students in one classroom, all with their own interests and dreams, all with their own journeys and life stories. Yet, there is only one way of teaching, and they will be kind of forced to adapt to this way of teaching, and they will be treated like one and the same. I am one of the children who felt that this education system was simply not fit for me. So, in my talk, I shall talk about the irony that is this nation's education system. So, I think I should talk about myself first. I started to listen to nursery rhymes at an age of about 1.5. Then, after some years, I would start to read about science. So, I felt this desire sort of develop within me to become a scientist. So when I was first admitted to school, I saw many kids a similar age as mine, but I found it hard to convey my ideas to them because I learned soon that their minds were not on learning. They would rather focus on completing their work, and they only relied on simple memorization to get ample marks in their test. To them, school was like a job, an unpaid job. But all of you who sit in this auditorium, you must realize that this was not the children's fault. It was how the education system programmed their minds to study. So I've been in Ravi for 4 years now, and so I'll be talking about my experiences I've had with this education system and some problems I've had with it. And I wish that by telling you all of this, we can look at our education system and further develop it to fit the needs of every child. So now I'm going to kick this off. So sometimes in the classroom, I'd find myself sketching. How many of you sketched in class while you were bored? Just raise your hand. Well, I can see a lot of you have raised your hand. So, and I think it was due to boredom. So for me, this boredom came out of the fact that I was not really interested in the lecture that was going on, or I simply had no information regarding it to tell the entire class. These sketches, they would consist of random items. They mainly consisted of strange creatures I made myself. But my teachers have told me that somehow while sketching, I was able to focus on the lecture that was being told, and I was somehow able to accurately answer any questions related to it. But these simple sketches, they have gotten me into trouble than more times I can count. One case had the school call my parents. I think you know what happens next. But if I am successfully able to multitask, why am I being judged so harshly for this? I sketched because my creativity, my mind was opposed to this lecture I had no passion for, yet I was painted as this unattentive child with no will to learn. But the truth was, I was simply fed up with their way of teaching, and I had no passion for the lecture that they were telling everybody in the classroom. All right. So, how many of you have had to deal with terrible handwriting throughout your life? Just raise your hand. Well, I'm seeing a lot of people who have raised their hand here. So I myself can assure you that my handwriting, I consider it to be one of my main weaknesses. Even I simply find it appalling to look at. I'm pretty sure it's been shown on the screen that's in front of you. Like, just look at it. Somehow my teachers are able to understand it. If not, I have no idea how they are able to check my copies. But now that you know this, the reason I'm discussing this is because I feel that sometimes I am judged a bit too much for my handwriting. Like, sometimes I would submit this carefully crafted and well-researched assignment. It would take me quite a few hours. But then what happened was that it ended up being criticized immediately for the handwriting. Not to mention, because of this pressure, my parents bought me some Nelson handwriting handbook, which cursive handwriting. I was practically forced to go through the activities in it, and it ended up taking out a good chunk of my time. But in the end, I actually think it made my handwriting worse. Thanks for the claps, but I must carry on, all right. But I mean, if they are able to understand my handwriting, why am I being judged for this irrelevant weakness? Why should I really be pressurized to beautify my handwriting to such a great extent? Even in this age of digitalization where everything is in a typed and printed form, I am still to this day being judged to beautify my handwriting, which I still have no control over. Thanks for the claps, but okay, so did I not discuss with you at earlier in this talk that I would draw those little sketches while I was bored? Yeah, now I think it's time to discuss the exact opposite of that, basically. So, sometimes in the classroom, I would have great interest in the lecture that was being discussed. Sometimes I know information relating to it. So, if I did know that, I would happily start stating some pieces of information I found helpful enough to share with my peers and the teacher. However, more often than not, it would usually just be brushed off as this interruption to the classroom, and I simply failed to see it this way. Had I not stated that the education system was utter irony at the beginning of my talk? So I think you can clearly see it here. Like, I was painted as this unattentive child with no will to learn, yet when I show my will to learn, my love of learning, I immediately end up being punished for it. By doing this, school is simply contradicting itself. It contradicts what it supposedly stood for. In the end, I would end up talking less about some information I found useful in the classroom. I was also compared to my peers who were much quieter than me because they basically had no will to discuss. Maybe you should be disobedient in the classroom if that means you can actually freely express your will to learn. Now, all the experiences I have discussed with you have basically just been like simple experiences that have happened quite a few times, but for all of those in the auditorium who feel the same way as me, you have had to deal with this since your admission to school, since your first grade. So now, one of my biggest problems with the schooling system has always been exams and tests and the stress they have put on me throughout the years. So, when a test was announced, sudden stress would materialize in my mind. While studying for it, it seemed like I lost all my will to learn. Every word I read was without passion, but had I not memorized it, who knows what would have happened to me. And I completely think I am doing the right thing here because that is what will get you ample marks in a test. Tests and their entire education system, they have never been based on understanding. It is simply memorization. You can just forget the information you've learned throughout your entire session. You should probably just stare at your textbook for 6 hours, sometimes so long that you start in the afternoon and end at your bedtime, and you can get each and every mark in a test, full marks. So it was never really a fun activity for me. And what's worse is that I think all of us in this nation have been told that these pointless numbers that we can earn through memorization is what will allow us to excel us in life. Whether we like it or not, our entire life will be judged for these marks eventually if we don't make a change. So basically, tests and the exams have really been a blow to my passion for learning. I really can't understand I really can't express in words how much they have damaged, or the talk would probably be too long if I'm being honest. So now, I came to school to get help pursuing my dream. But in the end, I can tell you that I am losing motivation to study. Like when I enter a new class, I would worry about the teachers I get, since I think the only way I can get some semblance of interest in this education system is if I find a suitable enough teacher for me. You had to deal with those excessive notations in the classroom before. I will rather focus on noting them down rather than even looking at the tiny pieces of information presented in them. I think you can see that my mind is slowly taking the form of the students I discussed at the very beginning of this talk. So despite all of this, despite all these harsh realities I just told you, I must say I have had truly incredible experiences with some of the best teachers and school staff during my stay at school. Like, they have taught me basic manners, basic necessities, and they really help me to understand the world around me. I always thought that these people thought outside the rules of this limiting education system we have to deal with. So I wish that our education system could give intellect wings so it can soar and fly rather than causing it to fade into obscurity. I think, in my opinion, the schooling system has two ways to go. It could either become all-inclusive or become more personalized. So in my opinion, I think the personalized way will be better for me, as I always hated is just studying about subjects I had no passion for, throwing hours of my time into them. And I wish that those excessive notations would be replaced by these hypothetical immersive activities that would surely paint a clear image in a student's mind. So I hope by telling you all of this, we can just look at our education system and refine it. It should fit the needs of every child. But before you all go, I have one thing to ask. How many of you are parents here? Raise your hand. Well, not many hands were raised, but I have a message for all of you. If you have pressurized your kids into like you have told them you should study that test thoroughly, you have to get good marks in that test, you must study in that subject whether you like it or not. I want you to just think about what I have told all of you. Just think about it. Think if you are doing the right thing for your children. And I hope that in the end, you can really start to make the right decisions for them. Thank you.